Good evening to everybody who's joining us. Thank you very much for this special pre-election kind of, you know, COVID style presentation. So first I'm going to tell you a tiny bit about the AAJLJ and about our program, of course, which is why we're here. So for the AAJLJ is a voluntary bar association. We engage with legal issues that have an impact on the Jewish and the broader world through the lens of Jewish values and tradition. The AAJ advocates around critical issues such as civil rights, human rights, access to justice, rule of law, Holocaust issues, obviously, and Jewish law. Through its members, the AAJLJ provides legal support to safeguard human rights. In addition, the AAJLJ works to combat those who attempt to use lawfare to stigmatize and delegitimize the state of Israel. So now, we have here Michael Taylor and his son Shannon Taylor. Michael Taylor is he's 98 years old, if that's okay for me to say, and he is a 58-year resident of Paramus and an owner of Woodbridge Hardware, born in Brussels, Belgium. In Warsaw? Born in Warsaw. Okay. So Michael has a very incredible story, and I'm mostly going to let him and his son Shannon share that with you all tonight. Also, just a few words on the relevance of Holocaust programming. And this is important to me because I believe a lot of the people tuning in today are younger, which is wonderful. Because as we all know, we all say never forget. And I don't know necessarily what that means. Some of us might just pay lip service to that. When I was telling some people about this program, people seem to say, oh, I've seen this kind of story before, oh, another Holocaust survivor is telling his story. And of course, that's incredible to me, the fact that we can be desensitized to this kind of story, to this part of our history. My grandfather survived Auschwitz on one side, my father's father, and he passed when I was younger and of a heart attack. And I think, from what he saw, I think he died of a broken heart. My mother's father, he fought in the Russian army. He was a pilot. And when he returned home, his entire family had been killed. So the thing is, of course, I don't know the people who died there, of course. And this is my history, but that doesn't mean that it's in the past. It's not. A big part of that is because the generations beyond those who survived the Holocaust, we feel the pain, we feel the trauma, we feel the fear that any of our loved ones can be lost at any moment. They can just be taken from us. And we all know that anti-Semitism is thriving, alive and well. And that's why we have to keep having these programs. We should never, ever be desensitized to an incredible but tragic story like Michael Taylor's. We should always be outraged that these kinds of events can take place. We must always listen to history because it's not just history, it's a cautionary tale. And so now we're going to talk to Michael and his son. And for those of you who want to ask questions at the end of the presentation, please, there's a chat box on the side. You can write your questions, and then when we get to the question portion, we will address those. But for now, first we're going to have Michael and Shannon tell their story. From what I understand, English is Michael's fifth language. Um, so he speaks it very well, but Shannon will help him a bit. And we're also going to obviously show pictures, as you can see. And I hope that everybody is as moved by this story as I am. Right. So.
Thank you, Alyssa. And what a delight it is to have you here, because otherwise I could not show one picture. And without Chris, who is our faithful assistant and aide extraordinaire, I need a whole team to do anything electronically. And my father is a happy 98, yes?
Yes.
And you're happy to be alive?
Yes.
And your dream all your life was what?
Happy.
To have a Jewish state.
Jewish state.
And you had that as a young kid.
Yes.
All right, so the title is From Holocaust to Rebirth, French Resistance, a Marquis from 1940 to Liberation, but it really begins in 1922 when my father was born. And in 1923, his elder sister Sarah was born. And in 1924, they could not survive in Warsaw the combined onslaught of the German anti-Semitism after World War I and the Russian anti-Semitism on the other side, because if you look at a map, you'll see where Warsaw is. And in the middle of the night, his father, separately, his mother took him at 2 and his sister at 1, a year old, and this is in 1924. So those from Poland who say that they were not on the side of the Nazis, they weren't. They took the biggest beating of anyone in the war from all sides. But they were on the side of the Nazis when it came to wiping out the Jews. It could not have happened. That's why all the death camps were in Poland and all known, and why we have difficulties with the Auschwitz Museum to this day. In a few days, there'll be the election, and everybody says this is the most important election. As far as I'm concerned, the most important election was when Hitler became chancellor. For purposes of this organization, of which I was a founding member with Justice Chaim Cohen, who was a leader of the International Association, and here, if Hitler had not gone through the law every step of the way and imposed his law in Germany, and the whole world accepted the discrimination of I don't know how many categories of undesirable, which is no way applicable to today. There is nothing about the Holocaust that is applicable to today. You can't imagine 1/3 of a population so ingrained in history in each of these countries being systematically, stage by stage, tortured to death. 6.5 million. That's really 6.5. 6 million were the German numbers, but they revised. At the same time, you had a gay population that was also with a badge. If you saw Cabaret, you saw that Joe Gray was not only the Jewish host, but he was the gay host of the offensive arm. And so he had all kinds of things stuck on him when he ended up in the concentration. My father grew up in Belgium, fortunately. And with that, we'll proceed to the book.
So you may realize, of course, that we do have a presentation on the screen. So just so you know, you actually, since we're sharing the screen right now, you can actually make the screen that has Michael and Shannon bigger just by dragging. Just so everybody knows, you can decide if you want to look at bigger pictures or at Michael and Shannon. All right.
Okay, so we need the next one. That is my father before images. When was this taken?
in, in Israel.
So this represents you're now going from 24 to 39, which is 15 years in Belgium with a good life. You're now going to how my father survived, and look, after going through all that and coming legally to Palestine and then fighting in the Independence War. But he was a rail when my mother met him there in Tel Aviv. I don't think he weighed anything. Yeah. Who was that?
My father and my sister and me.
And
Rivka.
And what was the occasion?
The occasion was bar mitzvah.
In 1935.
Right.
Does anybody know what else happened in 1935? The preparations for the Olympics. And America under Roosevelt couldn't have had a better ally of Hitler when it came to wiping out Jews. Jesse Owens ran with Roosevelt's begrudging permission. He had, after all, tried to silence Randolph, but Randolph won in the same year his stevedores, equal pay for blacks on trains. Unfortunately, the Jews were represented by such as Stephen Wise, who was a lackey like Frankfurter and Cardozo and Brandeis, all very well known now of Roosevelt. And in those days when Jew hatred was the worst, and only Walter Winchell was attacking the Nazis, and every Hollywood studio, with the exception of Warner Brothers, and only one of the brothers, was in league with Goebbels not to make any damn movies of Germany, except Charlie Chaplin, who did it in 1938. And it came out in 42 at the time of the Final Solution. Prophetic. So your father's name is?
Yeah. Tuchschneider.
The original name was Tuchschneider. I'm named Zachary, middle name after that.
And then his wife is Esther.
Your mother.
Yes.
And Esther, at the time of their execution in Auschwitz, where they were deported by the French voluntarily, who was 8 years older than your father, both of them could hardly stand, and you'll see that picture later. And they went with Sarah, who was in the resistance and very strong. And this is 1935. So in 1942 of September, that's how short it was. And you're 35, you're 42, that's 7 years. Everybody in that picture, with the exception of my father and little Rivka, was murdered. Yeah.
The war that I met Malka.
Well, Malka was the youngest of your children.
Yes.
A lot of them were born after Sarah in Belgium. They lived...
No, France.
No, Belgium. She lived in Belgium.
Oh, yeah, Belgium.
The picture is in France.
Yeah.
But we're showing her after she was a hidden child for 5 years. Together in a separate location, in the Loire Valley, in the chateaus, Chambord, and so close to the public at the time, Catholic schools where they freezed and they burned. The Nazis didn't care about them, but if they hit Jews, they all went to Auschwitz. And that was Klaus Barbie, who was appointed from Germany to be the youngest Gestapo leader in Europe, teenager almost. And he is the character you see in Quentin Tarantino's brilliant film, It Should Only Have Been, Inglourious Bastards. He's the guy that put the swastika on the head. Brad put some swastika. He never endured that. He escaped at the end of the war with the help of Canada, America, and the Vatican Rat Line, and he was given various different identities until the Holy Klausfeld, Vieri, and Serge, who from France. And Vieri was German, and she was zealous to do justice for her people, and she, as well as Simon Wiesenthal, were responsible for capturing most of the war criminals and putting them on trial. a singular accomplishment was Klaus Bach. At the time that this picture is taken, his two other sisters, Rivka and Chava, are in the Loire, separated by age, and Malka was the youngest, yes?
Yes.
And she had the worst of it, because she was in Paris, half the kids with her were Jews, but she had to be Catholic, and she had been raised Jewish. She had to wear the cross and know the prayers, and if there was any suspicion, what happened? What happened if they ever thought she was a Jew?
Oh. You're dead.
They were immediately deported. But, okay.
Deported and be dead.
And you're in your uniform of the French resistance with the double cross, which was a general French uniform. It took 2 days for her to recognize you?
Yes.
And she was scared by the uniform?
Yes. But it took 2 days to figure out that I am her brother. And then I went looking for the other two sisters.
Now, Rivka and Chava, you knew the underground had persuaded your mother, not your father, to let them go as hidden Catholic children. It's a whole movement. They've had conferences and conventions in New York and Jerusalem and elsewhere, and they grew up as hidden child. They couldn't speak Hebrew, couldn't speak Yiddish, to do everything as if they're the best trained church person. And then at the end of the war, they had to become Jews again, and they couldn't recognize their brother. So the next.
Okay. Let's slow down a little so that we all want to hear Michael as much as possible. Okay.
Who were they?
And finally, I found my sisters, three of my sisters.
You're now united.
United. And did his job.
And it says hidden truth.
Hidden truth.
So what are their names from left to right?
Eva, Rivka, Malka.
Were you close to them? Was it a close family?
Close. Very close.
So when you were first separated at the work camp Agda,
Yes.
with a barbed wire down the center, and the women on one side, even little girls, and the men on the other, with you with your father, what was it like?
So, it's like that. For the Jewish people, this is a tough.
And that
because the family is the main thing in life, and they separated, and it was terrible.
And then that was only the beginning. That's when Italy occupied the south of France, which fell in 6 weeks, less time than the Warsaw Ghetto resistance, 50,000 left from a million before. And the whole community was in the south, because the Italians, even though they were fascist, Mussolini started fascism and Hitler adored him, they were not having an axe to grind against Jews. They had laws, like everywhere else against Jews. They adopted Nazi laws, like Vichy France, which had capitulated shortly after Dunkirk. You could have gone to Dunkirk, right?
Yes, I was in Dunkirk, the Polish army, and I escaped.
The whole army escaped.
The whole army escaped. And I went back to my parents.
So you went all the way to southern France, through the fiercest fighting, because France was not overtaken, even though their armies abandoned hope. And only Charles de Gaulle and Churchill said, fight on. Petain, the leading general, said no, and he became a Nazi. Yes? And so southern France became Nazi law. All due to law. And you had to have your sisters hidden because of law. And they would be deported and killed because of law.
One sister, the Sarah, was with the parents. taken to the hospitals. They
That was in September 42. Mussolini's existence kept the Jews alive in all the countries. The final solution came seeing Mussolini failing and then capture. And that's when the Germans took over Vichy France. Next.
Here's my father, Dershowitz, and my mother, Esther Patricia.
And that was after they escaped with you from Riversalt, before they were retaken and deported.
I took them out, and for 1 year living outside, and then next taking again, and the transfer with my Sarah.
Your closest was Sarah.
Sarah, and the parents were taken to Auschwitz.
Sarah was 16 at the beginning of the war. You were 17. So, and in 42 of September, France was the first country to deport non-civilian refugees. First came the Gypsies.
Yeah.
Then came the Spanish Republicans who had opposed Franco, which America did not oppose, and Russia did.
Yes.
And then
it was the Jewish people.
And then came the Jews and everybody else,
Yes.
and the Catholics and so on. And they kept it secret, and they did it in stages, so you'd be too weak to resist and too confused to know anything. Next.
There was no pictures before the war. The day.
No, this was the last time you saw Sarah.
Sarah with the parents together.
Yes, no, but you had this is taking place in July of 42.
Yeah.
After you
escaped. The next day they were taken away.
Yes, but so this is the last time you saw her.
Yeah.
And that's hidden in the woods.
Yeah.
You went off to the fields.
Yes.
Your parents couldn't come.
No.
That's all. It's
Because
very nice.
Too much been broke.
They were broken already.
Yes.
They were in the Pyrenees in Riversalt,
Yes.
and they froze and they burned. There was a wind sweeping down the mountains. No food, no shelter, no clothing, no sanitation. All right. Next.
Yes, my sister Sarah, the neighbor, the great organization.
Beitar.
Beitar.
And Beitar is Jabotinsky.
Jabotinsky. And the picture that she was 17.
That's at 1939, right before the bombs fell in May of 1940. The war started in September in Poland, and the Polish refugees found succor in France until France betrayed them all, like they did the Spanish Republicans and the Jews and the Gypsies and so on. And 6 months after they deported the parents, who were Polish, they deported the very French Jews, who thought they would be the first country to deport the French Jews. Look how happy she is, yes?
Yes.
Beautiful girl, smiling, no idea of what's coming. The whole world ended in a day. Next. No, they do.
Okay.
This is an example. I wanted to point out that the education, the Jewish education with B'nai Kiva, with Beitar from Jabotinsky was top notch. They were taught better handwriting than I was, right?
Yes.
And look how beautiful she made her notepads. That's artistic. So you can go through the next 7 pages to show the detail of print and the exactitude of the letters and the colors. You can just swing through the next step. And this is all Sarah's handwriting in 1938 when she was writing down blessings as a homework assignment for the end of the semester. They were all getting very well educated except my father, who had to be taken by his father to help their poor condition and help him as a leather salesman. You can notice the bold print and all the things I can't do, she was able to do then. Now,
my father.
Which one is your father?
In the middle.
The one with the modern beard.
Beard.
Very well trimmed.
This was taken before the war.
In 1933.
And his brother in Poland had a wedding.
His eldest brother.
Yeah.
And he went for his nephew.
Yeah.
And his nephew also married someone named Sarah. And those are the two on the far right.
Yeah.
Next to them is your father,
yeah,
with the goatee. And next to him is the typical Jewish beard. The Nazis ripped off the Jewish faces all over Europe and cut them and then ripped them and so on, which was a longer beard you might see today among Hasidim. And his family, other brothers of my grandfather, made it until the war, and then they were all killed, except for a few first cousins that came to Israel. And the significance is that your father crisscrossed again
yeah,
all of Europe to go back against your mother's wishes,
yes,
avoiding Germany when Hitler became chancellor that very year and implemented all the discrimination laws. And he went for the wedding. That was the strength of family you mentioned, yes?
yes.
Next.
We joined the Bnei Akiva organization, and here's the picture that Jewish uniform.
And Sarah is seated.
Yeah.
Is seated, and you're on the far left, saluting. And this is a result of your seating and meeting and talking to Jabotinsky,
Yes.
who said that you got to be trained as a tough Jew, right?
Right.
He formed the Jewish Brigade,
Right.
which helped liberate Al Alamein when they didn't expect 10,000 Jews with Jewish stars showing up to augment Patton, who took all the credit for himself. But he liberated Dachau Buchenwald later, and you were friends of that army, so it saw a way out. When you were in that picture, that was in the mid-30s, yes?
Right.
And
before the war.
Before the war, but you still believed in Jabotinsky.
Right, because I listened to Jabotinsky. He spoke in Brussels that you should go to Palestine right away before you could.
But not many listened to him.
No.
Not religious and not secular.
Not religious.
But the socialists at the time were among the first Zionists. But there was always a majority of religious in Jerusalem, yes?
Right.
Okay. Next picture.
Yeah,
the same scene.
Every Sunday afternoon, we go to the park and celebrate the Bnei Akiva. And here's the picture of me and Sarah in Boy Scout.
And there was the Jewish Boy Scouts that became the underground. You received your training and skills.
Right.
Not only education, but training.
Training. We were training as a survived.
And your eternal dream was the purpose,
The purpose was to have a Jewish state.
and you were convinced you would get it,
Yeah, of course.
no matter what.
Well, and I fought for a Jewish state, and we made a parade, and I was very happy that I got the Jewish state.
Next.
Here is a map of
The Warsaw
the
Ghetto.
Warsaw Ghetto, where I was born.
Your whole family was
All
there.
our family was born. And I was 4 years old. I left to.
You had previously left, but you left your whole family
Yeah.
that didn't go to Palestine,
Right.
which was hundreds, yes?
Yes.
And the same was true in Belgium and in Holland and all in France and so on. This was the final solution, and they had beguiled Jewish capos and others
Yeah.
who figured they were the best ones to make the Jews go on the trains, where they had no idea they were going, but eventually they knew it was deportation. And it grew from a community that was supposed to be only a couple of 10,000 to house close to 1 million.
Yes.
But you were fighting in France at the same time.
Right.
Did you hear about the unprecedented 6-week successful battle against the Nazis?
Yes.
Was it inspirational?
Inspiration. Great.
Even though they all died at the end.
Yes.
But some survived to form the Warsaw Ghetto Resistance,
Yes.
one of which was Ben Mead, Roman Kent. I was the attorney for Ben Mead. And that led, with Elie Wiesel at the helm, to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., where my father was honored. And you're wearing a medallion in honor of Elie Wiesel, which is their annual award. And you're one of the few resistance fighters who received it. Next.
Here was
It says your original name, Tuschneider, yes?
Tuschneider.
And it's the Allied Expeditionary Force.
Yes.
That was your identification.
Right.
But it was also meant to be what?
Also,
It enabled you to get illegal certificates for your sisters and yourself. And with them, you passed it out to 50 others, all who went on the Matarur to Palestine, because that was your discharge, your honorable discharge.
Right. And on the boat were 50 Holocaust people who couldn't go because they didn't have the record. So those
They didn't have those certificates.
certificates.
But you had a friend who fought with you in the underground, and he got you the certificates, unprecedented.
4 certificates.
Unprecedented for young little girls out of the convent, because you were a hero. On the cover, you're on the cover of books. They've written about you in all the Jewish resistance stories. And so but first, as always, you thought of others.
Yes. The guard, these Israeli soldiers. So he would to take the tickets responsible, and we saved 50 Holocaust people.
With your legal certificate.
To Israel. The old were free.
How did you get the certificates back from each of them?
I took it. Then I went back and forth.
And the last were you and your family.
Yeah.
And on the trip was none other than Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Yeah.
as a young girl with 200 others from Switzerland.
Right.
And the ship itself was crowded with
Yeah.
1,000 people,
Right.
but only those with certificates, and was the last
Yeah.
legal British transport to Palestine.
Right.
Next. The reason you were in the Polish army was why?
Because I was born
And you stayed Polish.
Polish.
You never became there. Belgium never made you citizens,
No.
any of you. And that's your birth certificate.
Birth certificate.
So when you were with your family, the community from Brussels speeding to South France,
Yeah.
they examined everybody, saw you of a certain age, found out you were Polish, and took you off with the Poles.
Right.
And what did they try to do to you?
No, well, nothing.
Did they treat you nice? The Polish, the Polish army?
They were very terrible. Terrible.
They tried to kill you?
Yes. So I talked to French police that we were very good situation. They want to kill us. So the French police said to the Polish soldier that if you continue to do it, we arrest you.
And then it became moot with Dunkirk. And you
Yeah.
chose to go to your family instead of to escape on a boat. And that is your Polish birth certificate, which you had to get at the end of the war.
Yeah.
Next. They do it.
Here. Here's Malka.
Which one is Malka?
Right there.
The littlest one on the bottom.
On the right. And Marcel Marceau was the teacher. She and all the children, half of them were Jewish.
And this is at the end, the liberation of France.
The liberation.
That's why that picture could be taken, could never be taken before.
No.
And he, towards the end of the war, protected your sister in particular and became lifelong friends.
Yes.
And for the rest of the sisters. And he became, from his training, the creator of the mime, the whole mime theater, Momenschans, and all the great clowns, and all the great artists on Broadway. And this is an autographed book about him. And I met him many times at Carnegie Hall when he used to come. And he was very, very proud of being a Jew, but he was not religious. And he cried, right? Every time he remembered your sister.
Yeah.
And he was the most valiant scout. Next. Now, you had D-Day, yes?
D-Day.
D-Day came, and you had been captured before.
Yes.
But because of D-Day, you got out. When they heard
the name,
when we were on the Mazamet,
it's not the Mazamet.
And Leo Cohen,
yes,
Leo Cohen and Mark Hagno were the leaders of the whole Jewish underground.
Yeah, really.
And Leo Cohen is profiled in this book, among many others. And the connection, as I said, to this wonderful organization I joined many years ago was that my father was the assistant to Leo Cohen, and he helped you win this battle in Castres, right outside Lyon.
Yeah.
So imagine that his brother, Chaim Cohen, the younger brother, went on to become the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Israel, comes to New York and sees my father, who has all letters from Leo Cohen, and struck up a great friendship, and I became the first executive director under the Honorable Jerome Hornbless. And like another great heroine, Helen Friedman, who led AFSI after a teaching and journalist career, with her husband Charles Bernhardt, who brought back cantorial for everybody. That they have passed. The great have passed. Judge Hornblast passed. Gershon Cohen, who led it from D.C., he taught at Georgetown, passed. And now we have the new generation. But what does this march resemble?
Uh, we, 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 we fought 2 days, and they surrounded, and we marched
Through the town. You were the first unit to liberate a southern French town, right outside the Gestapo capital of Lyon. And before that happened, you had instructions from the Allied forces you were always in touch with, yes?
Yes.
And they sent liberator planes?
We have super radio, special military radio, code, with the American airplane, that they told us that at midnight they go to
They were going to send paratroopers with
men.
arms and supplies.
Supply.
And you regrouped
Yes.
while all the other French ran to the north,
Yeah.
including all the French police, because the last time the French police ever helped the Jew was with the Polish army, right? There was no difference between the French police,
No.
the German police, or the Gestapo, or the Polish
No.
police,
The girl not there.
and the British police occupying Palestine.
No.
All the same.
Yeah.
No difference from the Nazis. So, under law, there was no place you could go at any time for protection. Nowhere. No police station, no army, nowhere. You were on your own, stateless, yes?
Yes.
And you were subject to the whim of any Jew hater who would inform on you or kill them or kill you themselves. And you fought like that for 3 years, and then came the knowledge of D-Day, and you had instructions. There were supply trains coming.
All times, the liberators explained another thing what's missing in all the people are
And with that, you went to blow up,
blow up the German train.
and that carried how many anti-aircraft guns?
So, headed to fight the Dershowitz plane. Luckily, we blew up the train, and we fought, but the next day they did that.
30 people.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of wine.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The second wagon was liquor, full of
French liquor.
Yes.
The Nazi train coming to resupply against the Americans in English and in French, but they made sure they had their liquor.
Yeah.
No, you don't do it. This is
Here's what's a day.
no, this is Castro still, but you had a large unit. You had 75 people,
Yes.
and they wanted to honor every one of you. Are these the
No.
surviving Gentiles on the roofs?
Yes. This is what's a day.
And you're in the center.
I am in the center.
Point out to you.
Yes. And also we fought for 2 days. They give it up. We joined the group.
Next. Don't do it.
Here's the one of the cannon we
You took as a result of
Yeah,
defeating
result.
Castro.
Yes,
And now you had armored vehicles,
Other vehicles.
in addition to what you had from the train.
Right, yes.
And then you defeated the second town, a larger town, Mazume,
Mazume,
right?
yes.
And that's on this book, which was the first one issued in Hebrew after the war, yes?
Yes.
And that's you in
Yeah.
the corner, and they used this picture above the concentration camp of Rivesaltes to show that from Rivesaltes planning to deport you to Drancy to Auschwitz, you got their armored vehicles of the Nazis and liberated the French Gentiles who were sending you there. Yes?
Yes.
And by the way, you were acting out of law,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You were fugitives.
Right.
And if and the head of the whole thing, Mark Hagno, and you can find my father's whole biography by looking up that site. Mark Hagno was slaughtered by the Nazis in December of 44, and France was already liberated.
Right.
Okay, don't shake. All right, next. Leave it alone.
Okay. Here's the second
This is a tank.
military troop.
These are all French citizens who weren't happy with the Nazis.
Right.
And what are they doing?
To show we won the war.
They couldn't wait to shake your hands.
Right.
The same Jews they sent to Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Next. Don't shoot.
Here it is.
And this is the picture on the book which shows you at the forefront of the with a machine gun, because that was an armored machine gun carrier, and that was your training. And when you went to Palestine and you were in the elite brigade of the Gavati, what did you do in the Independence War? The same thing.
Same thing.
You were a top machine gunner at all the greatest battles.
Yes.
With Sharon at what battle?
Yeah.
Latrun. What battle? Latrun. And then in the Negev, in Tel Aviv. Next. All right, well, why do that? All right, this is one of the first books about Klaus Barbie. There were many. And his life and career. He was the most infamous Gestapo agent in all of Europe, because he got 40,000 Jewish kids and 20,000 Gentile Catholics with them sent to Auschwitz. And he was remorseless. And he was very good at what he did. And he was a war criminal just like the Mufti, who was Hitler's best friend from Jerusalem, who had all the Arabs joining the Nazis against the Serbs and in North Africa, even though Mussolini tear-gassed Ethiopia. The Mufti called the shots for a certain amount of Muslim Arabs, and he and Klaus Barbie were the main architects of carrying out the final treaty. The Mufti was freed by the British and sent to Palestine in the hopes of not having a Jewish state. And 7 Arab armies invaded, right after the declaration of, were you there at Dizengoff? When you heard Ben Gurion announce the Jewish state after the UN vote. Right. And so you were already independent, internationally recognized. Right. So the war against the 7 invading Arab nations that wouldn't accept this was essentially to retain independence. All right, now. Okay. One of the first books to come out about the details and the people who fought in the resistance, and you're mentioned, as it says, on page 128. Next. Now this, you had, France was liberated, December. You got honorably discharged. But you didn't continue at that time because you had to find your sisters.
Yes.
But later on, you went to join the Rainbow Army of Patton, who you knew, and who became customers of yours, yes?
Yes.
And what did they give you?
The picture. The liberate the customer.
They liberated Dachau,
Dachau
and what else?
and
Buchenwald.
Buchenwald.
And you saw that, and they were
Yeah.
making a film with Alfred Hitchcock, right? And they
Yeah.
never released it.
No. The soldiers themselves took the pictures.
And just in case nobody knows, after the Jews were gassed, or
Yes.
the other categories were gassed, this is where they were cremated.
Yes.
And they used the skin for lampshades. They collected all the hair and sold it. They
Yeah.
took out all the gold teeth. And when the monument men found what they did, only 2/3 of all the stolen wealth, the most they found were gold teeth.
Yes. Okay.
Next,
Okay.
the light went out. So let me, the most famous initial book were The Liberated by Yaffa Elliott and Brana Dershowitz. And again, my father was mentioned, and the liberators go through all the sections of Europe. The Jews rebelled in every section. Escape from Sobibor was a movie, and my father did a program with one of the leaders. And many Jews were killed, but many escaped. But that was the only time they were successful. It didn't stop the resistance in Warsaw and France and successful partisans. And this was a tape of my father when he first met Chaim Cohen and told him all about his heroic, iconic brother who he worshipped. And my father joined Chaim Cohen in Israel, and they were all honored, and I was taken on a tour of the Israeli Supreme Court, where I later went and studied, and we have great lawyers there, and it's a thriving judicial system, far more liberal than I would have. More ovens, yes?
Yes.
And that's at Buchenwald.
No. Yes.
They had ovens at every death camp.
Yeah.
Riversalt was a transportation camp
Yes.
until they decided to send the Jews out.
Oh, yeah.
Then they ended up there.
Yeah.
Next. The rack.
Yes. They hang people in concentration camp.
Any reason?
No reason at all.
So
They take anything and say one.
for any reason whatsoever,
No,
any
no.
Jew in any of those camps, or gypsy, or gay, or whatever,
Yeah.
could be hung on the rack.
Right.
And it has spikes in it. And so you could be whipped as well, right?
Yes, right.
So it was used for punishment, but you were never released from it. You hung there till you died. Buchenwald.
Good. Yes.
And that's the Rainbow Army
Yes.
that moved
The
to.
rainbow. Right,
But when you had established your own hardware enterprise,
yeah.
the head sergeants showed up there,
Yeah.
and the wife had told them what?
Here's my book that I showed the book of
And Dachau. It showed the whole plans and
Right.
maps of the Rainbow
Right.
Division of Patton.
Right.
Patton, who restored the Nazi war criminals to their positions after he defeated them better than anybody, because even though a terrific general, he knew nothing about peace. So he was eventually murdered by the Americans. But this is how they left the bodies, yes?
Right.
And they disposed of as many as they could, and then they ran and
Right.
left the bodies like that.
Yes. They didn't have time to
Naked,
them.
right? No flesh,
Yes.
starved,
Yeah.
beaten,
Yeah. Everything.
all ages,
Yes.
all sexes.
Oh.
Next.
can't.
It's the same.
They,
The bones are piled up on each other.
right.
And that's how the Germans left them.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just shoveled them into it. The Americans didn't do this.
No.
That's how the Germans
Yes,
fought
sir.
of the
Right.
dead corpses.
Yeah.
There was a victory to them, the Germans. They may have lost the war,
Oh,
but they got rid of the Jews.
sure. Yeah.
Next. Again, in Buchenwald, another pile.
Yeah.
And next. And as it says, this was done in June of 1945. And this was signed by Patton. And you got it because you were there. And it's the one thing that they gave you. Next. Where are you now? With the trees.
Please, it is Israel.
How come you look so good after all this? You know what I would look like? How did you have the decision to take your sisters that you finally had united, and you went to the Grand Rabbi to get 10 witnesses, and you were your own lawyer
Yes.
to get custody over them, that the convent refused
Right.
because they thought you were crazy
Yeah.
to want to take them to Palestine, where there was riots and terror by the Arabs all the time.
Right.
And British were hanging Jews,
Yeah.
and Jews were retaliating. And then the King David blew up, and then the Exodus was sent to another concentration camp in Germany by the British. And the only previous such incident had been the Sturma, which the Turks tried to help, but the Russians sank thinking it was a boat of Nazis. So now you're in Israel. This is after you resettled. You put your sisters where?
In the kibbutz.
And that was Shteliyahu,
Yes.
one of the first kibbutz outside Tel Aviv.
Right.
After a holding period of 2 weeks by the British,
Yes.
and even though you were legal.
Yeah.
And then you saw it wasn't for them,
No.
so where did you put them next? The religious school.
Religious
Mizrahi.
school. Mizrahi.
And that was from Jabotinsky too.
Yes.
Okay, next. Who was that lovely lady? Looks like
Eva.
my wife.
Yeah, Eva.
Ava. And she was in the opera, and she was the ballet,
Yeah.
and she was a runner-up for Miss Israel,
Yeah.
and they all adjusted to a wonderful life in a Jewish state at the prime.
Yeah.
You crossed history.
Mhm.
You went from persecution in Poland to the shtetl in Brussels with a good life to underground and hidden in France and deportation, then over a hostile British ship to Palestine,
That's right.
to be interred while legal,
Yeah.
to be restricted, and then to end up with a picture like this of the sister you saved when she was a young kid.
Yeah.
And she survived.
Yeah.
Great credit to her and Rivka and Malka. How many kids could survive like that?
Yeah.
No
Not too
parents, orphans, abandoned, it seems, in the middle of a war, everybody hiding from terror. Next.
Not too many.
And you got married.
Yes.
And what was your
Tom
wife's
Mercer.
name?
Rita.
Were you in love with her?
Oh, yes, very.
And she with you?
Yeah.
And where did she come from?
From America.
And she came with Manya Gould,
Yes.
thanks to Eli Drexler and Arthur Gould.
Yes.
And you were able to finally go to join her.
Yes.
Took 9 months.
None.
After the wedding. After she had to go back to work, she was administrator at CUNY.
Right.
And she was a Hunter graduate, Juilliard as well.
Yes.
And you went, and 9 months later, why? Because you had a Polish name.
Name.
And Eli from the State Department, mother's cousin, said, change your name,
Name.
translate it.
Yeah.
And that's how I became Shannon Taylor, and you became Mike Taylor.
Yeah.
And how happy were you when after a
Oh,
10-day crossing of seasickness,
Fantastic.
what did it feel like to see that? America's statue, Emma Lazarus. Come in.
What, unbelievable.
Was it equal to the independence of
Yes.
Israel?
Yes,
And was this country good to you?
yes.
And you became successful here,
Yeah.
knowing no English,
No.
knowing no hardware. Next. And that?
Yeah, the parents.
The first time you met your wife after 9 months.
Yes,
She's on the right.
yeah.
She's too delirious to And her mother, Bertha, and then her first cousin, Lillian, and then her husband, David
David. Yeah.
Feller. And you went into business with David Feller.
Yeah.
They moved from Washington Heights to the Bund. They moved, right? Where you had your store was only Germans and Italians.
Yes.
Fascist. And the home of the Bund.
And they liked me.
And they liked you even more
Well,
when CBS profiled you as the person saving kids and fighting Barbie, right? And the town honored you. And meanwhile, they themselves, all three of them, were refugees from Tsarist Russia.
Right.
And they had fled the 1905 pogrom by the Tsar. When they had no food, they blamed it on the Jews like they did in Poland.
Yes.
So you were all refugees together.
Get it.
And you were all delighted to be in America.
Yes.
And you all did well.
Yeah.
Next. Years later,
Yes.
that's Malcolm.
Okay.
And do you see the resemblance between the two of you, the faces?
Yes.
War didn't change that? All the wars,
All the wars.
all the privations, you still look the same.
Say,
And that was when she visited your house in New Jersey for the first time.
Right.
And you can see she's still somber. But now she's a tour guide. She travels the world. Her daughter Iris is very successful in Toronto. And Ava's daughter Orly is living a wonderful life with her husband in Toronto. And all their children, although from Toronto, go back to Israel in elite units.
yes.
You think that you and their fathers were the inspiration?
Yes, sure.
What kind of zeal did you have in the independence war? That you were going to win.
You win.
No one thought you were going to lose.
Right.
And the whole world said to Ben Gurion, don't declare independence.
Yes.
But he did.
Did.
Okay, next. That's again Malka, with her husband passed, unfortunately, Amos. Amos was a kibbutznik and could make or fix anything. And son Dror and other children are happily in the north. Malka grew up where? In Kiryat Shmona.
Shmona. He's a Shmona.
And what happened there? The first terrorist attacks by the PLO.
Right.
The kindergarten that was attacked,
Yeah.
the shelling, they had to live their lives in bunkers
Right.
until we got the Golan Heights that President Trump just recognized was legitimately Israel.
Yeah.
One of 100 blessings President Trump has given the Jews in Israel. Yes?
Yes.
Do you support him?
Yeah.
I want people to know that he has recognized what he's done.
Yeah.
And the person on the left of Amos, sweetest guy in the world, he was three.
Yeah.
And he was whose husband? Ava, Second husband.
Second
and she had three children from her first marriage.
marriage.
He had Yuki, and then they had Orly, who's married to Rob, who visited us here with Malka and Ava right before COVID.
Right.
And was that wonderful?
Yeah, wonderful.
At the same time, you were invited to be honored at Riversalt, the concentration camp where you almost died, right?
Right.
And instead, because you couldn't go, your younger sisters
Yeah.
went, and Ava made a great speech before the president,
Right.
and we communicated with her.
Right.
Because nothing stops Ava. Nothing. And Malka was with her, and
Right.
she took over the chair. They were ignoring the Jews, and she got the only standing ovation in the bunker underground that was their museum to what they had done. Next. And that is, of course, a very sweet Zvi with his granddaughter, all lots of kids, and all in the army, yes? They all go back proudly serving, wanting to serve.
Yes.
And all honored.
All of them.
Like their parents.
Yeah.
Rivka was a sergeant.
Yeah. No, she's an officer.
Yeah, she became an officer.
Yeah.
And so, next. And all of a sudden, you got an invitation. Who told you? Rivka. What kind of invitation? It's after 60 years from the War of Independence.
Yes.
To honor you as one of the few, for 10% casualty in a tiny country with only 600,000 Jews, of which only a few could fight.
Yeah.
You were never hurt.
No.
God blessed you. And this invitation brought you to the main square in Dizengoff, named after Rabin now, and the prime minister. And you were given a special proclamation. Next. And that's the 60th anniversary honor for you. Welcome anytime. Your sisters communicated with you, right? Throughout the war. Meet them. Meet him. They remember you saving their lives.
Yeah.
You escaped twice from Riversalt and took 25 people, including your family, out each time.
Right.
And you were always recaptured with your family because you were the last ones out.
Yes.
But the second one was successful. They all remembered you, and your sisters went everywhere for the honors of them surviving as well and being the message bearers. You have any final conclusion? Here you are, 98. You're wearing a commander of the Jewish War Veterans, where you marched in every parade while I was on a float drumming.
Yeah.
I would march for no money. And you still are part of the veterans.
Right.
And you salute the army.
Yeah, I still remember.
And you had 10 years of war.
Yes.
10 years of war starting at 17.
Yeah.
So, in the end, was it worth it?
Right. Sure. Of course. Now I am 98 years old, and I feel fine.
And I'm the one who got old. So you always had a positive attitude.
Yeah.
They diagnosed your brain as not only having the gene of longevity, which is why you never got sick, and why you had a hardware store where you could fall from the broken balcony onto glass and nails that you distributed and cut, and have mother take care of you in 3 days. You were fine. Huh? And they diagnosed you as a happy brain. You're proof that there's such a thing as a happy brain from somebody who went through all of this. And you want to live as long as possible.
Right.
And you have a daughter-in-law who adores you, yes?
Right.
And takes the best care of you.
Right.
And help me with these presentations. So with that, I thank you, and we're open to questions.
Okay. So we have a lot of comments.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
All very nice ones, of course.
They follow the story?
Yes. We have from Saran. We love you, Mr. Michael Taylor.
Uh-huh.
You are our hero. And of course, that is a lot of hardship you went through. You must be really persistent and determined.
Anything from Stephen Miller?
I don't know yet, but we do have.
I'm here. Congratulations on a successful program.
I want everyone to know what a neshama Stephen is. He has not met Alyssa, but he got in touch with them, knowing about my background with the organization and my father's presentations and honors at the museum in Washington and at Adas Israel, was it? Where the synagogue, all 500 heard your presentation. And his family B. Miller, the Holy Blessed Mother, was my mother's best friend, and the first person you met as a friend of the family when you came here, yes?
Yes.
Her husband was Arnold.
Right.
He worked for Jewish welfare and social works.
Right.
And Stephen is an esteemed attorney in Washington, D.C., still practicing in the Department of Energy, and puts together these programs all over by magic, as far as I know. He made our reunion. This is a long time before we had this reunion. Now I intend to use your resources.
So we have a number of questions from Jen Carol Kaufman. She loved the presentation. What a wonderful presentation. She wants to know what year was the DPID issued?
The discharge.
At the church, yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, at the end.
December 44.
December 44.
The chronology is remarkable. They are captured in May.
I can get off of it.
For execution. And then June 6th. And all the French Nazis run with the Germans. And they're left, right?
Yeah.
Alone. And they have places to regroup. And then the first is in June after D-Day, you attacked the train.
Right.
And then in July, you went through Castres. And then in August, Mazamet with all the weapons. How many prisoners did you take from the Germans?
3,000.
3,000 prisoners. And who got them?
So,
Who did you turn them over to?
to the American soldiers.
Who let them all go free? That's America for you.
Yeah.
Hello, can I just say something? Hi, Shannon. It's your cousin Orly.
Orly, hi.
Hello.
Bless you.
I'm so proud of you, my Uncle Michael. Thank you. Myself, my husband, and my 3 amazing grown adult children.
What are their names?
Shandy, Adam, and Jamie sat here with me and watched, and it was beautifully done. You did such a fabulous job, and thank you for all the wonderful information. And I believe it or not, even though I know the stories well, I did manage to learn something new. So I'm very proud that you choreographed everything so beautifully.
Thank you. But I owe it to
Israel.
Sorry?
No, Toronto. She
Toronto.
also Israel.
Yeah.
Her mother lives in Netanya, in the best beach in the world. And just when I'm ready to come with him again comes COVID.
True, how true. Maybe next year in Jerusalem.
Oh, a blessing. And blessings to Rob, your husband.
Thank you.
Indispensable to your trip here. And,
Absolutely.
And I hope your mom is able to get the tape if she didn't see this, and that Iris watched, and so on. And I would love all their comments.
Well, it's also a question. I hope there's somehow we can have a taping or on YouTube or wherever we'll be able to replay this for others.
Yes to both, Orly.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Orly.
Yes, thank you.
More.
And Jan Carol Kaufman also wants to know about Michael. What was your education after the war? What did you learn? Math. And when you got your sister back, you made her Jewish again, right?
Yeah.
He stopped his education because his father needed him to support the family when he had finished high school. He never got more education. The sisters all were extremely well educated, not only in Brussels, France, but Israel. And the whole families are very industrious, hardworking, loyal Israelis, humanitarians, heroic, and very bright. As far as the discharge, that came in December of 44, only so he could go and reunite his sisters.
Shannon?
Yes, Stephen?
No, this is Mark Langfan.
Oh, Mark, hi. God bless you. I'm so glad. I was coming to you and your father for the closing, but I'll do it now. William Langfan, besides being one of the most charitable people on earth for Jews, for Israel, older than my father, is alive and well and taken care of by this blessed soul. Mark Langfan is the CEO of APSI, and he was, when I was 20 years old, I don't know what, he's still a great, good-looking guy. He formed the first topographical map, the first one, and I was a geologist. He was the first one to show the mountains of Judea, the aquifers, the vitality of the water supply, and the necessity never to give up Judea and Samaria out of their reach and control, or it would be a disaster.
Amen.
So, Mark.
God bless you, Shannon. Michael, this was fantastic. Mr. Taylor, this was absolutely fantastic. I learned so much. And you were like the Forrest Gump of the war almost. God bless you.
That's what when he was on with the Blessed Rabbi Mark Golub of JBS TV, he said the same thing. Wherever something, he was also there at the tragedy of the Altalena, and he helped rescue the ones drowning, and they made them Haganah people. And so from Jabotinsky to that, and your father was in the Pacific, heroic, and he offered a lot of money for anybody who could prove the PLO ever changed its charter to recognize Israel. And of course, no one has taken him up on that.
Bubba Misa, that's like a Bubba Misa in 3/4.
And you are a feature writer for Aretz Shera.
Yes, and just want to say, the Langfans love the Taylors.
And the Taylors always loved the Langfans.
God
your
bless
blessed
you.
mother and your son, Justin, and I never forget William.
God bless you both, and we send love and everything good for you guys.
And I can't wait to see you again.
Amen. Amen.
So,
Sei gesund.
Thank you.
So I think everyone will be interested to know, I don't think you went into this, how Michael met his wife.
How did you meet Rita?
How did you meet
Rita.
How did you meet her?
And she came as a tourist.
And how did she come to you?
They had newspapers.
You had a newspaper.
And she took the English newspapers. So I asked her where she come. She said from America. And since then, a wonderful months later, we got married.
And the whole time, your love was of dance.
Yes.
And you were championship dancers.
Yeah.
In Israel, where they all dance,
Yeah.
and then again here in America. And I saw all the exercise you had to do and became a drama seated.
Yeah.
But when you met Rita, her family did not want her to marry you.
Right.
Why?
Because I'm a stranger.
You were a Holocaust survivor. And they didn't know what to make of that.
Yes.
And they wanted her to meet Shmuel and all well. And she said, I have nothing to do with Shmuel. It's Michael I want.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay married?
1 month.
Stay married. How many years?
Oh, many years.
I won't be here. 60 years.
60
She
years.
lived till 90.
Yeah.
And you were both honored in the Bergen Record for Bergen County
Yes.
with a whole page profiling the sacrifices for a love story.
Right.
Okay, so we have from the AAJLJ, Rhonda Lee's here. She is our regional vice president, and she has a few things that she would like to say on the note of the AAJLJ and Holocaust programs.
So first of all, thank you. I want you to know that anything that I say now is going to be come a poor second to what we've just heard today. The AAJLJ, as Alyssa mentioned, has had a number of programs on the Holocaust. We've discussed the book Lawyers Without Rights that talked about how Germany managed to, in a very short period of time, take the rights of being an attorney away from those in Germany, especially Berlin. Sorry. And we talked about a book called Stolen Legacy, written by a journalist in the 1990s
I
who,
read it.
Oh.
and Dina's a good friend, who basically, after the wall came down, got her or some small restitution for her family's building that had been taken away by the Nazis. The most recent thing, and Alyssa and I are particularly proud of this, is AAJLJ just is in the process of filing 2 amicus briefs with the Supreme Court,
Good luck.
one against Germany, the other against Hungary, on restitution cases. And a very large part of this, I mean, we end up with, a few pages of text, but was our learning about what the details were. And certainly we've learned even more tonight. I also want to thank Alyssa for pulling this all together, getting the
Oh, you
chance to
better
eat
thank
in your
Alyssa.
home, figuring out all the technology far and beyond, especially during this time. So for those of you who might not know about AAJLJ, please look us up. Alyssa should have your email, and we will be more than happy to reach out to you, and please reach out to us.
Thank you. And I hope to work with you now again all over with Stephen. I want to show one picture. I want to show one picture. And this picture, can you see it?
No. A little bit.
Can you make it better?
It's gonna be hard.
This was the first case under the auspices of Judge Jerome Hornblatz and myself to discuss the situation of Pollard 6 months after he was fraudulently deprived of due process and sent as a spy for an ally charged only with espionage. And who do we have for our first panel? The prosecutor, Joe DeGenova, who is now on Fox as a commentator, who relented finally, said he should go free because Joe DeGenova was charged with crimes. And next to him is the judges from Supreme Court of New York, then the very famous Floyd Abrams, constitutional founder of rights, and who got our dear friend Rachel Ehrenfeld, who was on my TV show Tuesday nights, The Conversation, where my father was for 2 years, next to the Herschel School, where he was in a play, and also Yad Vashem. Floyd Abrams was a lawyer, and Rachel Ehrenfeld wrote Funding Terrorism, and now everybody can write freely about who funds terrorism without the British cracking down for sanctions. Jerry Hornblatz, my mentor, and next to him is the perennial controversial figure, Alan Dershowitz, God bless him. He's for a two-state solution, which I'm not, but without him, there would be a lot of injustice left in the world. And he was the most pure person I met. He was absolutely not idealized. And the idea of anything going wrong with him is unthinkable, and it never happened. And we had that as our first panel, together with Chaim Cohen, arguing for Pollard's release.
Okay. So I see that we have we pretty much mostly have a lot of compliments towards your father, and there are a couple of people who want to speak to you, Shannon, personally, to ask more about some of the books that you mentioned.
Oh, there are more.
So maybe what I'll do when I send out a follow-up to everybody, I'll include some of these titles so that if anyone wants to look these up.
The best one on Klaus Barbie is old. The shocking story of how the U.S. used this Nazi war criminal as an intelligence agent. That was the State Department. That wasn't Truman. That was the State Department. It wasn't even Roosevelt. He was dead.
Not to interrupt, but we actually, AAJLJ here, we actually had another speaker. Her name is Debbie Senzepper, and she is a Pulitzer Prize journalist for the Washington Post. And her book is called Citizen, I think it's 365, and apologize if I get the number wrong. But it was about the Nazis living in plain sight here in the United States in the 50s and beyond.
Absolutely. The first person to recommend the expedition prosecution was none other than Elizabeth Holtzman as a congresswoman before she became a district attorney. And she formed the special committee under the president at the time, and the first person selected to run that and flesh out all the hidden Nazis. He retired. He wrote a book, and he's a very well-known speaker, professional, and that has been a very successful, to this day, operation and a very good ally.
Thank you. So, thank you so much, Shannon. I really want to thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know that Shannon speaks for you, but of course, this is your story.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to speak to you about it. And I'm very glad that I can be a part of this and that I can help share your story with more people. Thank you for what you did for us, for the Jewish people, for Israel, and God bless you. And I'll follow up with everybody after, but thank you so much to everybody for joining tonight. I know this was a little bit of an unconventional program, but hopefully unconventional is good sometimes.
We did it in COVID, despite
Great
COVID.
job. Great
All
job.
right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Michael.
Who's this?
Working.
That one more person?
No.